whether it actually does or not. But there you go. Don't know if anyone's got a separate laptop. I'm only on my one laptop because I'm still kicked out of my office.
I do. I get a notification when it's live, so usually it takes about 20 seconds to pop up, and then.
All right, that's cool. Right. Well, let's continue. If it doesn't pop up, I'll try again. So
it's going. Good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So
it's going.
So top level, what I'm trying to do is I've got these three quite gnarly investor types that hopefully I can get some time with. One's already come back saying, yeah, no problems. And the other two have not heard from, but then it's over New Year's, so wouldn't read anything into that. I wrote the minimalist deck as the nothing, and I only have half an hour of your time idea. And then Troy, you've got the other deck, which we'll talk at the end of this call about how to actually version control that and so on. I've got a few ideas for that. But what I realized when I was test pitching this to myself is there's quite a gap of knowledge when it comes down to, okay, well, this is what you're doing. What's the structure? And Troy, I know you've got a number of diagrams, which you've already written. I don't have those embedded in my DNA enough to be able to stand in front of these guys. I mean, these guys are like real, dragons when it comes to this sort of thing. So they will tear me to pieces, not necessarily because of the idea, because that would be a wasted opportunity, but because of my preparedness. So that's where I'm at the moment. So what I'd like is on this call, first of all, to get any thoughts about the minimalist deck, the very few slides that we've got that describes what the hell. But then for you to do a brain dump down into me of what the funding structures you guys have been talking to each other about. So that's what I'm trying to achieve.
So is this a feedback situation where you want me to go through the deck and give feedback, or what's your goal here? What do you want us to do exactly?
What do you want, man? You want?
Those two things. The first one is on the minimalist deck. Have you any comments about the non-funding structure stuff? And the second thing is to take me through the funding diagram. I think there's only one diagram that really sums the whole thing up, but I don't know. Take me through that so that I own that in my own head. And by that, I refer. And everyone okay if I put these slides up onto the stream? That's not a problem, is it?
Yeah,
I am.
Yep, cool. All right, it's going up on the stream now. So I'm in Minimalist DC pitch deck.
So are you talking about slide 13? Is that what we're referring to?
Slide 13, yes, is the second part. The first part is, have you guys any comments about slides 1 through 12?
I don't like the demand piece that it did. It sounds like capital.
Yeah, I responded to that. You're right. I did reword it. How does the new wording sound?
The same.
Okay, so let me take you through what my thinking is. If I'm a company and I've got to get an app that does a thing about a widget that I've got, I'm having to.
I understand the thinking that you're trying to portray. I'm talking about it in terms of how it comes across from the words that you use.
Okay. All
right. I think the root of the problem is the word demand. That's not a commonly used term, and we have greatly overloaded that.
Yes, you might be right. So what's a better one? Previously we were using markets, maybe? Consumer. Capital, labor, existing products, consumer.
Okay, so I'm trying to take a top level view of this. What is this slide trying to convey? What are you trying to convey with this slide exactly? What do you want to say?
Right. This is real kind of pitch deck 101. It's
like, are we talking about innovation frictions?
Yes. Yeah. So slide 4 is about why are we trying to solve something? What's the problem? And slide 6 gives the resolution.
All right. So these are your 4 frictions. Is that what we want to convey?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. So okay, so each one of these causes drag on their certain sector of the free body diagram that is innovation.
Yes.
Okay. So
that's a great way to say it. Yeah, the free body diagram that is innovation.
Yeah, so I mean that's something I can mock up for you if you want tomorrow.
Oh yeah. I'm also very aware that when I originally did this, I did this just in a text doc and had many more suffers froms. But what you can't do is overload on a pitch deck like this. So I've kind of cut down these to 3 each. Now, whether that's the right idea or not, I don't know. But too many words on a pitch deck is never a good idea.
Okay. All right, and we're saying that all these came from circa 1602. Is that what we're saying? Like
yeah, that's my favorite analogy, which is the Dust East India Company's incorporation date.
Yeah, I'm in love with that already. So I mean, I think that's if there's one thing that needs disruption is the capital model. So
yeah,
you know.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, great. If you can give a whack at this, you get where I'm coming from in each of these, but
yeah. I mean, now I do. Yes. Now I understand what's going on.
Brilliant. And
because I would have just by looking at this, I would have thought demand was innovation, but I guess it's not. It really isn't innovation at all. It's something.
Yeah.
All right. So because we're so yeah, I don't think demand's the right term either. I'm not sure what that. What was the term that you were using, Tom?
Consumer.
Consumer. Okay. All right. I'll have a think about that.
I mean, the general concept came from them who want what you got.
Yeah. It's a need to fulfill. It's we've got a problem to solve. That's not solved by something else.
It had a duality about it. It had a demand meant I want things that you've got now, but it also meant I want things from the future that don't exist yet.
Right.
Yeah, and the important thing with innovation is without understanding demand or having identified demand, you're kind of pissing in the wind. You know, you're throwing darts at a dartboard. If you know demand ahead of time, you can get all the investment that you want in order to actually build the thing.
But true market leaders invent demand, though, right?
Yes, but the discovery of the demand is not a random thing. There's if you, even a market leader understands that demand needs to be qualified, needs to be understood before you go and ask for a great deal of investment in order to fulfill that demand. Previously, it's been done through research articles and the guts of entrepreneurs saying, yeah, of course people are going to need this, and that is highly inefficient. Really, what would be better is someone either giving up their data so that someone else can analyze it and saying, you need that, which is also demand, or identifying that they have a problem, but they don't know what the solution for. So that's demand.
Again, that piece was intended to take advantage of the most common theme in the Dreamcatcher is deduplication. Every startup has to go out and do its market research and figure all that out, but they all do it and then they don't share it with each other. Yeah, but exactly. In the Dreamcatcher, we would like to make a unified Wikipedia, as it were, of demand, where as an entrepreneur, I can point at some verified demand, and then I can justify the purpose of my expenditures or why I need investment off of this much more deduplicated and shared view of what is required in the world, as opposed to it being my own research, as opposed to it being done and then wasted when I fail because I never share it with anyone.
Yeah, I've just thought of a great example for this one from my own experience. So, good few years ago, prior to anything that we've done on Dreamcatcher, I was hired as a data analyst on a company called Lostec. And that company was trying to find ways of reducing losses in electricity grids. And the way that actually we were doing it was by getting the three-phase data in India which was quite hard to get. But once we had that raw data, we could point out that actually your three phases are out of phase, and that's showing losses. And if you got them in phase, you would have reduced losses. But also what we did was we discovered that a whole bunch of people were tapping off one of those phases to run really quite large factories on stealing electricity. So the data was the thing that we were looking at. The demand wasn't known there, but under Dreamcatcher, the person who put that data up should be, attributed for that, because that's a valuable thing. It's like, okay, here's the three-phase data for India. That's hugely valuable. We're going in and we're discovering demand for that, as opposed to what previously would be is like, well, probably this is a problem, so let's try and raise investment and we'll see if it's a problem.
That's different. That's different to what demand was in that pitch deck. That's talking about data sets, and it is more likely to fit in the quadrant of existing technology.
Yes,
it's something that's
right,
there.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, you're right. But it's existing use of existing assets.
Yeah.
Okay, right, yeah. I agree. It's a good answer.
I don't know if you want to actually highlight that existing assets covers data sets as well, because our technology aims to have the ability to process irrefutably real-time data streams and do processing of that for you. So
yes, that's a good point, because it's not there yet. It's not in this. Right. Okay. Good. All right. Anything else on this slide? That's a hugely fruitful 10 minutes we just had there, from my point of view. Anything else on this slide?
Why do you say? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I have nothing specific to the slide right now. I was just going to comment that the two slides look very similar. So
yes, this is text only, really, as you can see. Yeah, I've done nothing in terms of information design.
Also, the slide that says this is the last unbuilt social network kind of pops up out of nowhere and then disappears into nowhere. Yeah. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying it looks odd.
Okay, all right. That's a phrase that I've liked for a while, but I don't know whether it's true. For a start, are there any other unbuilt social networks?
You never justify it, and then you set it in the deck, and then
I think that's
off we go.
I think on reflection, that's actually bollocks. It's nice bollocks. I'd love it if it was true, but if someone put me on a stand, I couldn't define that.
Okay, well, that was my only prod.
All right, there you go. Okay, so, and then similarly for the solution, so we've stated the problem. Sorry?
Hey, Troy.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you have a picture in your head of a free body diagram for the forces on innovation that can be used to compare the old way with the new way, where the resultant vector or something is the score for the optimization of innovation?
Yeah, I think that we could show something where we showed the friction vectors like either reducing or going to zero.
Right.
That's brilliant.
I would love to do that.
Because it's drag, right? Because everything in that slide is drag. The fact that we have to reinvent the wheel is drag. That's both time and effort and capital that work is dragging project. The fact that we have to spend so much money to be first mover, that's a drag. I mean, there's a lot of drags in the fact that you keep, instead of spending your time innovating a solution, you're spending more time reinventing your ideas to make sure that no one else can use them or something, because that seems to be
exactly. Yeah, spot on, absolutely spot on. And even,
are you thinking of using a different dimension to represent each of the qualities of innovation, or were you just thinking of doing it as like?
I don't know yet. I'm just gonna start drawing shapes tomorrow and just see.
Okay, cool.
Okay, nice. Well, how about I'll pause 4 and 6, and then Troy, I'd love to see what your brain comes up with on this one.
Yep.
Because really, this comes back to the charter, which is our statement that on slide 2 and slide 3, that really is the piss pitch. Try, have I explained just piss pitch to you? I don't know.
No.
Piss pitch is the idea that it's the unfortunate version of the elevator pitch, but it's got a nuance which is quite interesting. You bump into an investor as you're going to the toilet. You're standing up against the urinal.
I was basically the elevator pitch. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And I would never invest in anyone that spoke to me while I was trying to pee. I would not.
I mean, we should stop using it. The reason I liked it is because of the multitasking aspect of it. In that it's socially awkward. You've got you want to take a piss and you've still got to pitch.
What I want to know is what if you're pitching this? What are you doing with your hands, man? Like, what's going on? Like.
Yeah,
the elevator. You pull out your phone, you pull out your phone and go through a couple of slides in the
But I mean, okay.
Yeah, maybe we should stop using it. But slides 2 and 3 are basically and slide 5 are the kind of the way markers for slide 4 and slide 6.
Yeah, so the big sort of confounding thing that we don't have quorum on is the funding structure.
Yes. So this is the part where I was hoping to just take a brain dump down from you, Troy.
Okay.
So this is slide 12 now because I've just deleted one slide.
Yep. Yeah, I'm there.
So I don't know what I don't know about this. So can you just take me through it and then I'll ask questions.
Yeah. So I think Tom and I went over this a few times, but I'll do a rundown again. So what we have is a real world legal interface in the Dreamcatcher LLC, right? So Dreamcatcher LLC can hold contracts. So that's our interface with all of us being able to write and actually put our signatures on something, the DPL, and then that would be inside the Dreamcatcher LLC.
Does Dreamcatcher LLC own anything like patents?
No. Well, yes and no. They hold shares of NFAs.
So it's NFA only holding company, effectively.
Yeah, if that. I mean, we also want at some point we want to be able to self-destruct that LLC if need be.
Yeah.
And then so that it would somehow merge into the DAO, and then it would just become an online entity all of itself when we don't need any more dictation from ourselves to how this thing runs. Mm-hmm. So this is you guys are talking about being dictators for the first few years and making sure that everything.
Yeah, but with a very important caveat that we hate that idea and try and.
No. I know. That's what I'm saying. There's a time bomb involved. The time bomb is we know that to bootstrap this thing, we have to have a real world presence somewhere because it has to be a PO box or something into real world in order to get certain things done, to interface with government entities and that kind of stuff. So that is what this LLC is.
Okay.
All right. That's all it is. And those shares, any shares in the LLC will go to founding members and or actual investors, so VC and or certified investors in the real world. So people who can actually, within their own government agency requirements, they can actually interface with this legally and not be in trouble.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So, and then what the DAO does is that they say, hey, we have shares in the LLC. This gives you a certain allocation of NFA promissory notes that you can use at some later date, like options, if you will. Mm-hmm. So you have the options to...
And are you saying that promissory notes need not refer to money? They can promise something else?
Options, yes. They can promise options. So in this
options
case...
to buy.
You have options to buy your stake of NFAs when the time comes. You can either exercise those options and have ownership in perpetuity of the NFAs, or you can sell your options to someone else for an interim date. So let's say you invest in there, but you need to rage quit and pay off, an ex-wife or something. You can always sell your options to someone else who would then exercise those options and then get a larger portion of an NFA that the Dreamcatcher LLC funds. And in that regards,
why include the promissory note? Why not just leave it as part of the articles of incorporation that periodically the NFAs will be distributed amongst the shareholders proportional to the shareholding?
Well, it's just a firewall to keep regulators at bay. So we don't want to make promises that this is a going concern that's going to go out there and make you a boatload of money. All we're saying is that all this is going to give you is a share of an NFA or a share of it'd be like getting a share of an NFT somewhere.
Is that for the purposes of avoiding triggering certain security reporting requirements?
That's right.
Oh, right. So that I would put that in the box of how to run the software code as for a contract box, which would be where our purpose is to build a platform where people can strike deals, negotiate deals with each other to construct these software-based NFAs and pay for them in advance, trade them after they've bought them, and they need a mechanism of operating that doesn't trigger securities laws. But I would put that as the box of like, that's what we're building. That's not how we're going to be initially funded.
Okay.
I think that we should be initially funded by actually selling securities, like legitimate actual securities.
Well, the LLC can sell securities, but what I'm saying is the securities doesn't give you rights to certain things. It only gives you rights to a SAFT agreement that would allow you to get a partial ownership of the NFA sometime in the future, but it's not a promise of profit, it's a promise of ownership. Now,
yeah, but we don't need to avoid making the promise of profit because we are legitimately selling securities. The NFAs don't become securities just because we said they're going to make you money.
No, this is but you still need a firewall between the actual incoming money pool and NFA generation. You still need where you
right.
don't
you
don't want the investors to have direct control over NFT creation, and you don't want NFT creation to have direct control over funding. You want there to be a separation, a firewall there, because we don't want people to come in and say, okay, that's great, but I want the NFA to be this and that. I want it turquoise, and I want it to have cornflower blue, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. We don't want them running the project.
Right. But that firewall is traditionally there between a company's management and its investors.
Yeah, sometimes, and a lot of times no, especially in startups, you get a lot of people who ask for seats on the board and start making controlling interest decisions where the company goes in directions where.
Oh, yeah, I get what you mean. So I'm not worried about that because one of the articles of incorporation would state that all the software work we do is open source. So if someone wants to steer it a way that we don't like, we just fold and walk. They can have their turquoise NFA thing, but the software is still there, usable. We can start a second company, build it out further. That's sort of our safety pin or safety lever, I guess.
I mean, as long as you don't feel like there's an issue there, that's fine. I'm just letting you know that there are risks involved in that as well.
Right. So the driver behind what you're saying there is to make sure that the corporate structure of whatever fundraising vehicle gets created does not in any way distort or try to eat or control the Dreamcatcher's structure.
Correct. That's right.
Right.
I want it to be decentralized funding, basically.
Right, and so long as we make the focus of that company strictly the creation of NFAs, I think we'll be okay.
Right. No, I mean, we're vehemently agreeing with each other. What I'm saying is that you got to think of it as more of a SPAC, I guess, is what I'm saying, where where you're funding somebody who's investing in this is going to be funding a SPAC operation where it's a blank check, and all we're saying is that we're going to go out and buy NFAs with this blank check. And no one really has any say in that, other than the fact that the articles of incorporation say that that's what our mandate is, to go out and buy NFAs for this particular project. And that's it. Now, whether or not, I mean, so that's really what a SPAC is. But so then this is kind of the hybrid version of that, a decentralized SPAC, if you will, where we're getting funding from many different sources, some private, some other, like maybe even mom and pop operations where people are using their credit cards. Somehow we have to be able to combine all those and make it into a treasury, that the Dreamcatcher treasury funds the NFT project that are critical to what it needs, specifically not what a pet project that somebody else might be on the board wants.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Can I just reflect this, because I'm trying to get this into my head? So Dreamcatcher LLC exists in order to buy NFAs as a fund. The people putting money into that fund don't have a direction on what those NFAs are, but they end up with the ownership based on their shareholding of the Dreamcatcher LLC. Is that correct?
Yep.
If you have a promissory note, say they have a piece of paper, promissory / option that says, I have a certain amount of ownership to those NFA rights. Now that you can exercise those rights at any moment. Yep.
Right. Okay. I'm a bit fuzzy on that one, but
well, it's called a SAFT agreement. It's basically it's not. So what you're saying is we're not saying there's a 1-to-1 direct correlation between the number of shares and the percent you own of an NFA.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that you fund the LLC, and as a management structure, we will make sure that that treasury is being used to do this particular project. And these are the projects that we find that are critical for now. That might change, in which case we'll go back to maybe either A, asking for more funding, or B, taking a vote for the board to maybe misdirect or redirect funds to.
Yeah, hopefully not misdirect. Hopefully not misdirect. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it happens. So what I'm saying is that, people's hair gets caught on fire, and we have to put it out with a fire extinguisher, and that starts a whole new project. That just comes up. So
that's fair enough.
So
if you're to, sorry to labor on this one, but I really need to get it in my head. If you were to pitch this to me as an investor, let's say a retail investor, mom and pop, say, with a credit card, and I've got $5,000 that I want to put into this Dreamcatcher LLC. What do I see back, and when do I see back from that $5,000? And am I likely to have to put more money in order to realize the results of that $5,000?
No, you wouldn't. No, that would be a direct loan. So basically, you'd be loaning us at $5,000, and we would give you an interest.
Oh, right. So that's debt. If I was a retail. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
But that's the low risk method, where you will only get a certain percentage based on how the AMM fees and everything else work out on the system. I mean, we won't know exactly what the fee structure is until everything runs in steady state. But there's many AMMs that pay out upwards of 200 or 300%, depending on the fee structure and how often an AMM is used in that situation.
Right. Got it.
But a lot of that, again, that's when I say 200 or 300%, I'm not saying 203% in fiat. I'm saying 203% back in NFA type of situation where
for ownership. Yeah.
Right. So it's not a return on investment in terms of dollars. Like it's not. I open in $5,000 and I'm going to get 200% in that return. What you're saying is, I'm putting in $5,000 and I can expect a certain amount of ownership per year, depending on how long I keep my funding in, and what sort of projects I wanted to go towards. Because again, this can happen on the Dreamcatcher itself, but this is the external Kickstarter Dreamcatcher where we're looking for crowdfunding, where instead of doing this within the Dreamcatcher, we're doing it to actually to get out there and crank the engine and get it to run.
So that's why I wanted to separate those two models, because this initial engine crank, I would imagine it being done by like 4 or 5 investors putting in like 200K each, like, and that's all. So the model that you're talking about, Troy, sounds more suitable for a large number of investors that we don't personally know, which would sort of fall under the model of the more general operations of the Dreamcatcher once we get it up and going. Whereas, like, in my head, it seems easier to pitch and raise to the people I know about a small company that is only looking for like 800K to $1 million from like a handful of people, and you get shares in the company owns NFAs. Periodically it will pay out as a dividend the percentage of the NFAs that the company owns, so that it tries to hold zero reserves of NFAs. It pays them out to the people who own the company all the time.
Right, but that model doesn't cover other externalities of the system. That only covers core operations, not so much like certain other projects that come along that may need funding that aren't suitable for
right. So what you're saying is that model is peculiar to the initial conditions of the Dreamcatcher and does not cover a general project trying to launch itself within the Dreamcatcher. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I want to separate those two structures for the sake of speed and simplicity at the start, where the first structure, the simple small company with a handful of investors, sets out to build the more general environment through which any company or project could raise within Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we get, let's say we get initial investment and we get a lot of this stuff done in the next few months, right? What I'm looking at is trying to decentralize that funding as fast as possible with other, like I said, smaller investors coming on board and actually
okay, but that decentralization of the funding, which you're talking about, is a critical epoch for our timeline or our progress, and that would occur once the initial version of the Dreamcatcher began operations. Its sole purpose would be to begin that decentralized funding, and then it would start to, or our operations would start to draw on that decentralized funding source for its future work. And the initial company that we form would be stopped, halted, frozen, and then the Dreamcatcher.
That's what I'm talking about when the timeline comes in and that company holds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So this initial company is not the long-term thing. It is just to get off the ground. And you could argue that the NFTs that get produced by this company, with this company, may be some of the most valuable in the Dreamcatcher critical to function services.
Right. So, I mean, I'm talking about, when I'm talking about some of the decentralized funding, what I'm talking about is, what about some of these guys who are switched on and know what we're doing and can read the documentation and want to get involved but aren't a credited investor?
We unfortunately, we cannot handle the overhead or the cost required to safely deal with them now. Our primary focus with the initial rounds of funding will be to create a system whereby we can handle those guys, because that's where we access much larger, more understanding and more compassionate forms of funding. But it's expensive to make sure we don't break any rules to handle those guys.
I guess what I'm saying is that it isn't that expensive anymore. It used to be. You're right, but I think now with the way the DeFi is moving at accelerated pace, I think that's
okay. Well,
Well, I guess for me using DeFi every day, it's frictionless now, man. It's really just, it's not even that big of a deal anymore.
So what you're trying to tell me is that perhaps actually this initial peculiar company is not required, and we could go straight to the general form of decentralized funding immediately.
Yeah. And then make the investors, people who invest larger sums, just larger whales, if you will, of this DeFi project for actually funding the actual corporation and all the critical to function features that we need.
Can you hear me up there? Like, am I bothering you? No? Okay. All right. No. Sorry, there's some...
Okay, all right. So, listening to that, it sounds like previously, Tom, you were looking for this more traditional share owner NFA pool.
Well, just for speed, right, and just for something simple, because I mean, the investors I've been talking to are they're not sophisticated, up with the latest play type of guys. Like they've made like millions of dollars in mining and infrastructure and roadworks and other types of foundation things. They want this project for different reasons, and they don't really the more I have to try and educate them, the more sort of they're like, well, what are you even doing? Sort of thing, right? It just needs to be simple and traditional.
Yeah, the further from the comfort zone, the less likely they are going to,
right.
Discount the risk.
They're comfortable picking up the phone, talking to their investment banker and saying, hey, I found this guy with this system that I like and I want to invest in it. This is his company registration number and this is what he's proposing as a shareholding structure. They don't want to have to deal with, what we're trying to do, which is the next generation of company formation equity structures. They sort of don't want to have to wrap their heads around that just to put their money in.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all. But what Troy is saying, if I understand correctly, is he's saying that things are so frictionless now in the DeFi world that we can actually start with sophisticated investors using a decentralized structure, and we can actually drop the need for this conventional interface to conventional money because we actually don't need the conventional money, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, no, I'm just saying that there's two portals. I'm saying that there's one portal where we set up a DeFi unsophisticated investor portal where people who can read the documentation or do their own research or do their own thing, kind of have another way of DeFi, can get involved on smaller amounts. And we also have the route where, like where you have people who are just like, look, man, I just know how to build roads. We're like, okay, well, this is how to build roads version of this. Here's what you need to see.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is two separate audiences. That's why there's two separate boxes in this funding model. These people have...
Okay, which one of those is the quickest to get up and running starting today?
Well, the quickest up and running starting today would probably be a neck and neck situation. I mean,
okay, so all else being equal, those two things are the same amount of overhead, time, and would result in roughly the same amount of funding.
I would argue that maybe depending on what sort of marketing you do, the total value of DeFi would probably be in the millions.
Okay, so it sounds like the correct choice is to do the DeFi route first. I mean, I'm embarrassed to even say the word DeFi to people I know, so we're going to need a lot, like, if someone's like, what are you working on these days, Tom? I'm like, oh, a DeFi project. Like, I'll get laughed out of the room. Like,
no, I mean, we're not working on a DeFi project. We're working on a project that's run via DeFi funding.
Okay. So,
big difference there. I mean, because there are people that run just DeFi funds, and that's all they do is DeFi stuff, and that's not the world we want to be in.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Actually, you're right. There is a large amount of DeFi VC going on. Okay. Well, where can I go to understand how this structure would work for us? I understand the conventional one. I don't see how to do it today with the DeFi route.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I can send you some websites that you can have a bit of a play if you want. But it would be easier if I showed you here. But
I'm not in Auckland. Sorry.
I know. I'm aware of that. No, I'm not saying today. I'm just saying whenever you're back, we can have a sit down and I can actually show you what I'm saying. But if not, I can send you an email where there's some steps saying here, create this wallet, then go to this address, connect your wallet, and then just kind of have a bit of a play and see what's going on.
That'd be very useful for me because I'm not in Auckland either.
Yeah.
And
really,
and again, a bit of stage fright talking to sophisticated investors about the DeFi route. I would come a cropper quite quickly. That's because of my ignorance, not because of the structure. So anything you can send over would be helpful.
Well, I mean, that's, I guess, the decision we have to make, and I don't know how to make it. Do we make a conventional route simply because the investors Scott and I know are kind of old school guys? And
I don't see why they do both. That's what I'm saying here. I don't know why. There's no reason why we can't do both.
I think you're right. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive.
No, they're not. No, it's just that basically, if we were to get people who would get in first and they're more sophisticated, they would just have a larger share, and the people that come after that would just have to tune down.
It gives me the jitters to think about two different funding structures, because any funding structure takes a lot of time and admin and costs to get up and running and to maintain, and comes with its own hornets, I suppose.
Well, I mean,
so
the goal would be to move everybody into the DeFi pool to be under one.
Yeah, well, we should start with that then. If it's possible to start it for about the same amount of effort, and it's the one that's going to survive, we should do that, and I should probably just get an education.
Okay, I mean, again, it's fine with me. I'm just saying that I think we're probably going to need a company anyways. So there's that. So
but I'd rather that company was constructed at the behest of the DeFi structure, not the company structure came and then it built this DeFi structure. I would, you know what I mean?
Fair enough. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying that you were asking me for solutions, and I was just brainstorming. That's it.
Okay.
No, that's
okay.
This is one of them.
Provided I can understand.
Yeah, so I mean, no, you guys will totally understand. So what I'll do is tomorrow I'll just put together something really simple, and I'll post it to Discord, and I'll just get you guys to walk through a real step-by-step guide. That's the whole thing, and then when you get to the website, you can just start tearing into the code and see what.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. If I can understand how that goes, then that is the structure we should set up from the get-go. Since it's going to last, and it's about the same effort as a conventional structure.
Yeah, cool, brilliant. Can I just do a quick time check, because both of you guys said you didn't have that much time this evening?
Yeah, I'm sweating bullets. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I gotta go.
Yeah. Let's wind up there. That's certainly on my part. That was incredibly useful. Troy, I'll pour over whatever you send over, and please don't spare the horses on it, because I need to bring something to you.
I got the same education this time last year. I went through DeFi University, and it was eye-opening. And so now I'm like my eyes are open. I understand what's going on, and it's not just a buzzy. It's not just a buzzy term. We're talking billions, man, billions in total log value. And some of these smart contracts are
just promise me that I'm not going to get a phone call from a securities lawyer.
Well, I mean, it's really difficult to do, because a lot of this stuff isn't fiat. There's no fiat involved. So one of the things you need to realize when you go to these sites and you see these ridiculous APY, it's token APY. It's not fiat APY. So I can make any site I want, and as long as I'm paying you an ROI back in token, I can make that ROI 200% because I have a pool for that. You know what I mean? And I can say, hey, if you lock If you give me
Yeah.
liquidity,
I just so long as we're like, I want us to not just be respecting the letter of the securities law, but we have to be respecting the spirit of it too, which is we cannot run the risk of drawing in unsuspecting idiots, for lack of a better word.
I'm the one dude that doesn't want to be involved with that because I've already been through audits and that's not something I want to go through.
Yeah, we got to actually look after people and make sure their money's safe because we're trying to do something earnest, and we actually don't want people jumping in for the wrong reasons because we think that we're going to turn their $5 into a Ferrari. Like we're not. So you know, like don't do that to us.
No, that's cool. All right, so let's wind up there because you guys are time pressured. So I got what I wanted out of this in terms of the slides 1 to 11. On 12, that was incredibly interesting, and if you can send over whatever you can on background reading on that one. You don't need to write anything, Troy, just send over source material.
I'm just going to put in a quick email thing together and just with some links and just a bit of a step-by-step guide. And I might even just Google something, and if I see something on Google that I think is pertinent and satisfactory in my mind, because I don't want to just send you guys anything. I want to send you guys something that's actually robust in terms of how I understand it. So that way you guys will understand as much as I do.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then ensure I send you guys the sites that I think are the best ones in terms of this, like a model of how it would look and how minimal it is, you know? So
I do. And right, thank you both for time today.
No problem.
It's certainly been useful, and we probably should wrap up there.
Yep.
Okay, cheers, guys. I'll see you later.
See ya.
Yep. See ya. Let me know if there's anything wrong with the stream. I can post the recording.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I'll double check it once I've